The longest hunt of Wolverine's life was his hunt against the Predator, because during their final fight with each other, the Predator injured Logan so badly that he actually tried fleeing the scene and getting the Predator off his trail, but when the Predator eventually caught up to him and turned off its cloaking ability, Logan felt like he was staring at the face of death, which resulted in him thinking about how this whole journey began in the first place, which takes us back to Alaska in the early 1900s. During this period of Logan's life, he was living deep in an Alaskan forest and tried staying away from people as much as possible. The only time he went into town was when he needed money, and the way that he earned money was mostly by selling animal hides. Now, the reason Logan preferred living in isolation was because he was so exhausted by human greed, and he felt like everybody he'd ever met was either seeking money, sex, land, or some form of power. He'd even rather hang out with and go to sleep next to bears that he befriended over the years. But one day when his senses assured him that a storm was coming, he was forced to wait it out at an outpost known as Scar until the conditions got a little bit better. Unsurprisingly, during his time there, he tried making time go by faster by knocking down drink after drink, but somewhere along the line he was approached by a man desperate for his help because apparently his son was recently the victim of a kidnapping. So despite the terrible weather conditions, him and Logan made their way to a campsite where the father believed that the kidnappers were hiding, but in the midst of doing so, both of their horses were spooked for some reason and knocked them off of their saddles. So they started looking around the forest, trying to find out what could have scared their horses like that, eventually stumbling upon a full-blown slaughter site where not only a bunch of animal carcasses were hanging, but human carcasses as well, leading them to believe that the kidnappers were responsible for doing so, but it turned out that they were completely wrong because it was actually the work of a predator who'd been going on an absolute tear lately. However, they wouldn't find this out until way later and still believed that the kidnappers were responsible, so upon their arrival to the campsite, Logan barged into their log cabin without a moment's hesitation, effortlessly slaughtering every person in sight. Shortly after that though, upon being blasted in the back with a pistol, he realized that the man he was trying to help was deceiving him the entire time. All he wanted was $20,000 that was being stored in the cabin, and the story about his son was a complete lie. Before he could successfully make an escape though, he was stopped in his tracks when none other than the Predator himself used his shoulder cannon to blast his head into smithereens. So when the flesh from Logan's wound was finally finished healing, the two of them jump into a gruesome and blood-filled showdown, with Logan doing damage by slicing at the Predator's throat, and the Predator doing damage by jamming a spear directly into Logan's stomach. After that, they both needed time to heal, but Logan knew his injuries were more severe than the Predator's, so he fled into the woods as fast as possible, luring his enemy into one of his many caves, where none other than the bear we saw earlier effortlessly snatched the Predator from behind, where it then began non-stop tearing at its flesh. It was at that moment that Logan flashed a smile before heading back into town, fully convinced that his opponent was gone for good. But as time passes, the comic then showcases the Predator walking out of the cave seemingly unharmed while holding up the bear's head like a trophy. So many years passed after that Logan eventually forgot about the Predator altogether. He was a completely new man now and working with a completely new team that was trying to stop a group of rebels from obtaining power in some sort of war. But upon trying to infiltrate one of their bases, everybody had already been slaughtered. So him, Sabretooth, and the others continued scoping the place out in hopes of figuring out who got the jump on them, which is when none other than the very Predator that Logan crossed paths with years ago arrived with an entire team of Predators. But sadly, that's when this issue comes to an end, but if you guys want to see what happens next, let me know in the comments down below.
I thought Beast was ugly. I need a beer.
Let's see how the